Yes, a 5 o'clock start. I live in Kent, so I was basically commuting to Belgium today. Got up early and then boarded the Eurotunnel. I arrived about just before 6 o'clock, and then I was on the 6:20 train this morning.
And you were on the train, and then obviously something happened. Did you know anything? Did you feel anything? I mean, what went on?
Didn't really feel anything, and I'd actually started to doze off, and just at the beginning of the journey, starting to get into the journey and thinking now, starting to doze off, and then 10-15 minutes into the journey, there's this noise, and it wasn't like the noise of a vehicle crashing, but you could definitely hear there was some sort of scraping, like we crashed into something basically, and a noise, and then you could hear this scraping, and then all of a sudden the vehicle started, the train itself started to just gradually slow down. It wasn't like we just rammed into something and stopped. There was a very gradual slowdown of the train, and just really at that point wondering what happened.
And was there general concern? Did people start talking to each other after you'd been stuck in the tunnel for a while?
That's the funny thing, because I sat in my car and no one got out. In my particular section of the tunnel, there were some guys in front of me. I think maybe because they were more well-travelled than me, maybe they'd experienced this before. But I sat in my car wondering, what do I do now? Do I get out? Do I, So I just thought, well, I'm going to just wait and see what happens. And that was probably I wouldn't say it was scary, but it was just sort of a bit bewildering, just not really knowing what was going on, and just sort of sitting tight and saying, well, hopefully they'll make some sort of announcement. Something's going to happen. They'll come and tell us what's happened.
And did they make an announcement eventually?
Eventually, and that was it did take a long time for that announcement to come.
How long?
Well, it wasn't actually an announcement. What happened was some of the Eurotunnel guys came and actually walked down our carriage and said to us, this is what happened. The power lines have come down, or we've crashed into the power lines and they've been brought down. And you can understand their explanation, because basically that's pretty much what it sounded like. It sounded like we'd caught something and that actually been pulled down, and that was scraping along the train. So it was that sort of brief 20 minutes where we didn't actually know what had happened.
So 20 minutes for them to come down the train?
I would say it was 20 minutes. It felt like a long time. I was sitting there thinking, why is it taking so long? And there was very little activity. We went in the dark, so it was well lit. There wasn't any problems, but apparently the power had actually been taken away from the train.
So how did you leave the train?
Again, that process took quite long. What happened was that they periodically made announcements. So I did feel that although it took a long time for them to make the initial announcement, they periodically, every 20 to 30 minutes, made an announcement. So we're inspecting the train, we're trying to see what's going to happen. And eventually, I'm not sure how long it was, I think it didn't feel like very long, but it was actually, when I looked at it at the end of it, it was a couple of hours before they then said to us, well, they're going to evacuate us from the train, and they then moved us into the service entrance of the train. And, well, not the service, the service tunnels, not necessarily the service entrance, but they moved us into the service tunnels, and we stood there for about 30 minutes. At that point, it was quite interesting, because I was expecting people to be, really, I was expecting to see some people that were upset. I mean, people were frustrated, but generally it was quite calm, and orderly in the way that we were actually evacuated. They gave us a bag of goodies. They gave us a bag which consisted of a notepad and a pen, a little torch, a fan, strangely enough, a pack of cards just in case you get bored, and then they kept us in that service tunnel for about half an hour, and then basically informed us that another train would come and pick us up and take us out, which happened. Basically, the train, another train, an empty train came. We all boarded that train, and then we were taken across to France.
So now you're in France. How long did it take you to get your car?
That was the interesting part, because I thought, 4 hours. I thought, I thought that they'd communicated reasonably well with us, and having talked to the people that I was with afterwards, they didn't think it was particularly well, but I thought they'd communicated with us quite well before. But then once we were actually at the services, it just took a long time and very little communication. So it was about 7 hours before I got back in my car again.
That is a long time.
It is a long time. And I was just waiting. I think we had maybe about 2 announcements made to tell us what was happening, and there was a lot of just hearsay and people's, stories about what was actually happening. No one really knew. Having said that, they didn't actually commit to anything. They didn't actually say your car can be ready by this time, because they basically said has to be inspected. We have to go into the tunnel. We have to go and potentially pull the train out of the tunnel using another locomotive and so on.
So when you finally were approaching your cars, I mean, have they given you any indication as to compensation or anything like that?
Yeah, so they, again, handed us little business cards saying, contact this number and you can get a refund for your particular trip. I'll certainly be trying to, I'm an IT contractor, and obviously I've lost a day's income, so I'll certainly be trying to gain some compensation from that point of view. But, I do feel they dealt with it well when we were underground. The general consensus of the people I spoke to was they felt that 4 hours for an evacuation is a long time. And I did talk to other persons who said that they could smell burning and electrical burning smells, which I think if I'd smelled that I would have been a bit more worried. But fortunately I think I was probably in a different position. I didn't really smell any of that, so I wasn't really worried at any particular point in time. I thought that we were going to be evacuated quite quickly, but yeah, it took a while.
Richard, that is terrific. Thank you so much. Stay where you are.
Okay.